Hey BGC members, my name is Miss Michelle and I'm the Director of Character and Leadership and Teen Programs here at the Boys and Girls Club of the Austin area. Today I want to go over our two candidates for this 2020 election. Now that you know all about voting, now that you know all about the election, now you know all about why it's important to vote, we are going to meet the candidates so that you are informed on who is representing you. Okay, so let's go over the two candidates that are on the ballot for this 2020 election. So first, there are two candidates that are currently on the major ticket for President of the United States, and that is a person from the Republican Party and a person from the Democratic Party. There are people on the ballot for other parties, but these are the two that are most likely to win, and so this is our focus for this year. So here is a list of issues that people usually focus on when comparing two candidates. Remember when we said that we want a candidate that represents our ideas and beliefs? Usually people look at these different types of issues to make sure that they're making the right decision for us. Why? These are some of the most important issues that people are talking about or that people are impacted by on their daily lives. So let's go over the different issues that are of focus for this year. As you can imagine, one of the biggest issues this year to focus on is about COVID-19 and the president's response to that or their plan for COVID-19. Healthcare is the second most important issue that people are worried about regarding their new president. Climate change. So climate change is about the environment and how the world has been impacted by people's behavior or not. And so that is another issue that people are really worried about. The next one is immigration. So if you're not familiar with that term, immigration is a term for people coming in and out of different countries in order to seek safety or in order to just move, right? And so that is something else that folks are worried about. Another issue is racial justice. We have been talking a lot about equality and social justice, so this is something else other people are talking about, and they're wondering what their leader thinks about it. The next thing is the economy. The economy is a word to describe the businesses and money in our country, right? So folks are also really concerned about that. The next is education. So education is probably one that you're most familiar with, but people are worried about what our leader thinks about education. Lastly, America and the world. So people are thinking about what our leader is going to do in relations to the rest of the world and how they are going to relate to other countries. And so looking at all these issues, what issues are important to you? Which ones stood out to you the most? Which ones are you thinking about and thinking, I hope my new president cares about this? I'll give you a second. Great, now that you've thought about the issue that you really care about, I want you to pay attention to that issue. When we go over each candidate, I'm going to tell you where they stand on each of the issues, and I want you to really listen so that you can decide, do I agree with that? Do I disagree with that? How does that feel to me? Okay, so if you don't understand something, just write it down and we'll come back to it later. So first we are going to go over our first candidate, which is Donald Trump, who is our current president in office right now. He is a person from the Republican Party, which is why the background is red. And here are a few quick facts about our President Donald Trump. So he is 74 years old. This is something to consider because remember the requirement is 35. So people often think about the age of the president. So he's currently 74 years old. Like I said, he's a Republican. His vice president candidate is Mike Pence. We'll learn about him in another time, but right now we are focusing on the president. But Mike Pence is his vice president, so that's something that people do pay attention to as well. His experiences is after graduating from college, Trump took over his father's real estate business, later expanding it into a global brand of hotels, office buildings, resorts, and golf courses. In 2004, he started in a reality TV show, The Apprentice. Since 2017, Trump has served as the 45th US president. So he is currently our 45th US president. A lot of people want to know about the professional experience about our presidential candidates, so that's why that's up there for you to consider, right? So what is his experience like? His family, he has a wife named Melania Trump. She's currently our first lady in office. He has 2 daughters, Ivanka and Tiffany Trump, and 3 sons, Donald Jr., Eric, and Barron Trump. He also has 10 grandchildren. So a lot of people care about the personal lives about our leaders too, right? Want to make sure that they are people who are reflective of our values and our beliefs. So, oops. Okay, so here is where he stands on all of the issues that we talked about. I'm going to go over them one by one so that way you can listen and see if you agree or disagree with these different ideas, right? So first, his plan for COVID-19. President Trump's response to COVID-19 has been to first ban travel overseas. His idea was that if we are not going to different countries, then the virus will not be spread. Secondly, he wants all states to make their own rules. So currently, states have been responsible for making their own plans for COVID-19. So all different states have different regulations and rules as to what they should be doing for COVID-19. He is also an advocate for the economy and has been encouraging businesses to either stay open or reopen as soon as they can in order to keep the economy going. Remember, the economy is business and money, right? So he is very concerned about that, and he wants businesses to stay open. Lastly, he is highly focused on finding a vaccine. So that has been something in the front running of his COVID-19 response. He says, I want to find a vaccine. So if you don't know what a vaccine is, it is a medicine basically to make sure that other people don't get COVID-19. So that is President Trump's view on the COVID-19 issue. Next, we're going to go on to healthcare. So healthcare, President Trump wants to replace the Affordable Care Act, which is our current healthcare system, and he wants to make it less expensive for the American people and for the budget of the United States. He's also created options for health plans for small businesses, and so that's something that's important to him in regards to healthcare. So climate change, his stance on climate change is that he does not believe that people are actually responsible for the different changes that are happening in our climate. He also does not support the Green New Deal, which is a proposal. The Green New Deal is a proposal for the way that we burn oil and gas and the way it affects our environment. Politicians have put together an idea in order to make that better, and Donald Trump does not support that. Donald Trump also wants to increase oil and gas production. He thinks that that's something that's really important to this country, and so that's where he stands on climate change. Next, on immigration, President Trump believes in deporting undocumented families. He believes that people who are citizens should have the right to be able to stay here, and people who are not citizens should be sent back to their primary countries, right? And so he's also set a limit on how many people can resettle in the United States. And he's made a policy where children and adults who are coming into the country must be separated in order to get them processed better, right? That is what he believes. And he also has a plan to build a wall across the Mexican and United States border. And so these are things that he has stood by through his campaign for many years. And so that is his stance on immigration. For racial justice, these are a few of his points and things of importance for racial justice. President Trump defends law enforcement and but he did make changes to the way that they interact with citizens. Another stance is that he's been largely vocal about his opposition to protesters, right? So he's largely against protesters, and he has largely been vocal that he does not believe in or support the idea that there is a large issue of race in our country, right? Now to the economy. Donald Trump believes in giving businesses support in order to be reopen sooner. He also is very proud of low unemployment rates during his term, and he wants to be able to give fewer rules to businesses and tax cuts to businesses to be able to support them and help them grow. In regards to education, he believes that public schools fail students of color. So he thinks that public schooling has flaws and that all students should be able to have access to private and public education. So that's one of his stance on education. He also wants to offer people tax cuts for donating to scholarships. So he wants more students to be able to go into private schools and make that more realistic for all people. And additionally, he wants, in the America and world issue, he believes in increasing security around the election and wants to make sure that there is no other countries that are able to come in and mess with the election process, right? He also left an agreement that separated our relations with Iran and believes that they are investing in terrorist groups, and so he has a goal to stop them. That is his view on America and the world issues. On to our second candidate. That was a lot, right? So think about it. If there was anything that you agreed with, keep it in your mind. If there's anything you disagreed with, keep it in your mind. And now we're gonna listen to our second candidate. So the reason why we're going over both candidates is you can hear one platform. Platform is like the package of his ideas. We're gonna hear the second platform, which is another package of ideas, and you're gonna compare, right? So like I said, keep what you agreed or disagreed with from the first candidate's platform, and then we're gonna go over the second one, and then we can compare, right? So our second candidate is Joe Biden. His background is blue because he is from the Democratic Party. He is 77 years old. Remember, we care about our age. He's 77 years old. He is a Democrat, and his vice president elect is Kamala Harris. Again, we'll go over her in another lesson, but this is our presidential candidate, right? I'll read his experience the same. It says, after graduating from law school, Biden worked as an attorney and got involved in local Delaware politics. In 1972, he was elected to the U.S. Senate, where he served for 36 years and chaired the Foreign Relations Committee from 2009 to 2017. He served as vice president under President Barack Obama. His family, he has a wife who is Jill Biden, and he has a daughter, Ashley, and two sons, Bo and Hunter, and 7 grandchildren. So again, we care about our president's family. Here is his platform, right? So his package of ideas, and we'll go over them one by one, just like we did for the first candidate. So Joe Biden and his plan for COVID-19 is he wants widespread testing. So he has been very adamant that if he was president, he would have widespread testing across the country. He also wants to increase tools and resources for hospitals, and he wants the federal level, right? So the country level to be able to make all the decisions for all the states. Remember, whereas President Donald Trump wanted the states to be able to make the decisions. He also wants to focus on healthcare planning, and that's part of his big response for COVID-19. So let's move on to our second issue, that is healthcare. So healthcare, President Joe Biden wants to be able to protect the Affordable Care Act, but he wants to lower cost of insurance plans in order to make them more accessible, and he wants to make a public option, so that way anybody could be able to get health care. In regards to climate change, Joe Biden believes people have caused climate change. He also supports the Green New Deal. Remember, Green New Deal is that package of a plan on how to improve the environment, and so he supports this. He also wants to reduce gas and oil production to support the environment. So remember, one of the things that we talked about Donald Trump is that he wants to increase gas and oil production, right? And so this is the stance Joe Biden takes on climate change. In regards to immigration, Joe Biden believes in increasing the level of legal immigration, right? So he wants to make a legal process. He also promises to end many current immigration policies, and he wants to create a pathway to citizenship so that undocumented people can live here and contribute to the United States economy, right? And so that is where Joe Biden stands on immigration. In regards to race relations, Joe Biden believes racism is an issue that needs urgent attention. He also says he would make policy protecting people of color, and he would call for the investigation of police incidents, right? So this is his position on racial justice. In regards to the economy, he believes in giving businesses and their workers support. So he wants to be able to support different businesses, and he wants to invest in transportation and schools. So his focus on the economy and the money, again, businesses, like I said, his focus is more on transportation and schools, and he has a plan to raise the minimum wage from $7.25 to $15. And so that is Joe Biden's plan for the economy. In regards to education, Joe Biden believes in high quality education for all. He also wants to give fair funding to private and public schools, and wants to give money to schools to make them more diverse. So something that's important to Joe Biden's campaign is that he wants schools to be able to diversify, meaning he wants any kinds of kids to be able to go into all different types of schools, and he wants to give money to schools to be able to make sure that they do that. In regards to America and the world, he also believes in increasing election security and wants to get involved with technology companies that have a wide reach. So he wants to partner with people like Facebook to make sure the election runs smoother, right? He also believes in making a plan with Iran. So we're talking about earlier that President Trump believes that Iran has some ulterior motives. He definitely Joe Biden definitely wants to re-enter an agreement with this country in order to regain trust, right? So I want you to think about different things that you agreed with, different things that you disagreed with, and write them down. Same thing that we did for our first candidate, right? And so if you're thinking about all the things we just went over, I know it was a lot, you can basically see some comparison, right? They have some comparison, right? So if I were to, for example, healthcare, right? President Trump wants to replace the Affordable Care Act, and Joe Biden wants to keep the Affordable Care Act. So something you'll notice is that in each of these issues, we're talking about the same thing, more or less. They're just different beliefs and decisions about them, right? So because it's like one side and the other of the same issues, that's where you start to think, what do I actually agree with, right? And so what do you think? How do you decide? This is a lot of information, and usually people sit with this information for months and months, sometimes years, right? So how do you make a decision? You really have to sit and think about what you believe in. The hardest part about an election is that we all have different opinions, no matter what. Me and my brother and sister were raised the same. We have same home environment, but we have completely different beliefs about the world, right? And that's okay. That's what makes this world so great. That's what makes our country so wonderful, is that we can all have our own opinions and make our own decisions. But it does come down to making a decision, right? And so how do you decide which candidate represents you best? So the way I would do that is, remember I told you to write down all the things you agreed and disagreed with? That's how you're gonna decide. If you agree with more of the things that one candidate says than the other, then that's likely the candidate that you're gonna go with, right? But I want you to really consider and think about all of the different things we talked about, and think, what is most important to you? What is going to impact you? What ideas make sense to you, right? So what ideas were like, oh yeah, I like that idea, and some ideas you're like, oh no, why would you think that, right? And so those are the kinds of reactions I want you to look for in yourself. You know, what's making you feel comfortable, what's making you feel uncomfortable, and that's how you know what candidate you're gonna vote for. And I want you to think about this. If no one else was looking, if you didn't have to tell anyone, and the cool thing about elections is you don't have to tell anyone, who would you vote for? right? If no one was looking, if you didn't have to tell anybody, who would you vote for? And that's who you would vote for. All right, so I hope that you took something away from this. I hope that you learned from this as well. I want you to think about what you think about the candidates, not what other people say, not what the media says, nothing else. What do you think about the candidates, and who are you going to vote for? Right? And so a couple of glossary terms. I know this was a hard one. I want to go over them to make sure that you understood everything that we went through. And so again, the Affordable Care Act is a healthcare plan that was introduced by President Obama. The climate change is the gradual shift. So it's the way that the temperature in the world is changing. And it's a theory that is presented by scientists, right? The Green New Deal is a policy that would support, it's a policy package, right? It's like a plan that would help people make better decisions about how to lessen the climate change, right? Immigrant, someone who comes to a new country and plans to stay permanently. So immigration, we talked about that. It's people who are coming in our country, maybe out of another country, and they plan to stay for whatever reason. That's immigrant. Racism, we talked about racial justice, so I wanted to just clarify what racism was. It's an unfair treatment of people based on their race. And so that's what we were talking about when we said racial justice. And taxes. I know I said the word tax cuts. Taxes are basically amounts of money paid to the government, usually based on income, and are used for most public services. So taxes are money that we give back to the government after we earn it in order to support public services. So for example, public schools are funded by taxes, right? City parks are funded by taxes. And so when I said tax cuts, it's because big businesses often get tax breaks or tax cuts, meaning they don't have to pay that money in order to be supported in other ways, right? And so that's what taxes is. So that was a long lesson. We talked about two candidates who are two of the biggest candidates we've ever had, and in an election that is super duper important, especially because their difference in opinions are so large, right? Like they're literally black and white. But you get to decide which one represents you the most. You get to decide which opinions you agree with more. You get to decide who you vote for on Wednesday, October 28th, when we have our Kids Vote event. And I hope that this has equipped you with the best knowledge possible to be able to make a decision. So take care, everyone. I hope that you're staying safe. Please wash your hands, and please vote on October 28th, which is our BGCAA Kids Voting Day. Bye.